Hello guys, Hydra here and welcome back to another video. Things have been a little bit quiet recently as we haven't had a stream or any new patches to work through, but rest assured we're told next week we will be getting a preview within the developer stream on Thursday of the forthcoming patch. Now, that being said, in this video what we're going to be doing is running through another build guide, just showing you how I've managed to try and, well, optimize the current build I'm running with. And hopefully this gives some of you some inspiration as to what you can do with your own build. So as you'll see, I am rocking a Melta gun. So as I've mentioned on the other videos, the first thing you do when you get a new weapon is you look and you see what the actual abilities do, because that's going to govern which skill points actually bring some benefit to this. So what you'll see here is we have vulnerability to heat, we have a dot effect, we have armor piercing, and we have channeled barrage armor breaking dots. So there's not actually a lot here. We've got a little bit of armor piercing, armor breaking, one with a dot, which for me is never enough to really justify going into dots. The only weapon I'd ever consider really speccing into dots is the needle rifle, because that puts dots on sort of all the time. What we'll mainly be alternating between is the first and the third ability. We'll come back to that in a moment. So armor piercing will do something for one of our abilities. Now, what you'll notice here is looking at the DPS of each is it will give you a rough idea as to how good each one is. The way I've specced, you'll notice Inferno Beam is significantly higher than the others, 940 DPS. That's when it's fully ramped up, so bear that in mind. Let's move over to the character screen and see what we've gone for. So you'll see, yes, this is another critical hit 0% build. The reason being is we're going for 20% plus damage, no critical hits are dealt, and as a consequence what we're going for instead, bonus range damage of 42%. Now we've got the bonus melee damage in there largely from the accuracy over here. The accuracy will give you 10% melee plus ranged damage bonus, which is very nice. Obviously the other two are somewhat, well, you could go for survival, but it wouldn't really be that useful. So I've got plus 42% damage to every ranged ability I do, and as well as that I also have the plus 20 there. So that's 60% total in terms of range damage, but yes, no crits. So moving over onto skill points now, you'll see where we've spent our stuff. So we've got two abilities, the Inferno Beam and our third ability, that have either armor breaking or armor piercing. So therefore we have another 3, 6, 9, 12% damage there, and 10% suppression damage to these attacks, which is just simply a nice way to boost them up a little bit. If you think about it, you're using them half of the time, so, well, 3, 6, 9, 12, that's really kind of a 6% DPS increase, I guess, because they're similar damage to the other moves. It's not too bad for 4 abilities being spent. Now, they could be spent elsewhere, but you'll see why I got them in a moment. So, moving on here, another 3% for the range damage. When your suppression status rather is green, it should be green most of the time if you're using some cover here and there to restore it. So that's really not an issue. Now, I've gone for a little bit of tankiness again, and this is more out of the fact that I've got every other skill point I needed spent within the range tree, so I had some excess points left over. So we've gone for stuff that simply makes my character a little bit more tanky. The extra damage reduction when your suppression status is green is very nice. And you'll also notice I've gone for engine and armor type creatures suffer 50% more corrosion damage. I've really just got this at the moment as a test to see. I have a feeling because the Inferno Beam does apply a dot, and I think a heat-based dots do corrosion damage rather than poison damage. So we're trying this just to see if it makes Inferno Beam do more damage. Haven't actually been able to confirm if that does work yet, but it looks like it should. Now, what I've gone for here on the range tree is, well, 2 redundant points up here to get the, well, unfortunately they won't be critical hitting anything, but this is to get the almost mandatory skills after. Again, this one not particularly useful, nothing has a cooldown, but 30% cooldown bonus on overheated weapons. Now I think that is actually probably not particularly useful because I don't overheat very often. So I'm actually doing a little bit of build generating on the fly. I can take all of this off. I actually thought that was a bonus to heat generation. It looks like maybe that's been changed. The cooldown bonus is how quickly it goes from overheated to no longer overheated. So we just saved ourselves 4 points there by reading the tooltip properly. What I actually want is 30% less heat generated, but hey ho, that looks like that doesn't do that either, so we'll move on. So we've got another 3% range damage here, we've got another 1.5, so 4.5 from these 3 points here for range damage. Again, we're not critting, so none of this other stuff's really relevant. And, well, we could, if we're playing in a team setting, go for these B moves up here. 5% damage to a slowed enemy is really significant, but I don't have any slows on my abilities, or shocks, stuns or freezes, so this was sort of a bad investment unless I'm playing in a group. Obviously anything in the critical hit tree is going to be wasted, because I'm not doing any critical hits, so we can move on from there. And this is where I've started to spend some of my leftover points, because I've maxed out my range damage percentage. So what I've gone for is some extra suppression, mainly to get to these 20% damage reduction when my suppression status is red. That's quite a lot. 20 damage reduction equals 20% damage reduction, and well, that's not too shabby at all. If you combine that with 20% hit points when your HP is below 30%, these basically combine so that when you're low, when you're about to die, they help bring you up a little bit quicker, especially in PvP where the player damage is very, very low. As you can see with the extra 4 skill points here, I could probably pop them into some of these other things, but I'll do that another time, although we'll have a quick little overview. Deflect I won't be doing much of. Suppression damage reduced by plus 30 to characters. Ooh, okay. That's not that great. If you're about to die, saving yourself suppression is not particularly useful. Heals are... nah, we could try that. We could try that maybe. Get some extra hit points, go through there, get some extra hit points. So you're probably wondering, why the hell have I built a assassin to be slightly tanky? The truth is at the moment there's just not enough skill points for this build. If you're doing a range damage bonus with a melter gun, there's not enough damage orientated stuff to spend. You don't do slows, so this entire tree aside from the point spent is irrelevant. I could probably go a little bit more onto the suppression tree. I might even suggest those 4 points I spent could probably be put right here, giving you a 20% damage and 10% damage reduction bonus whenever you're hit in suppression status green. So whilst an enemy's shooting at you, it's provided they don't wreck your suppression, 20% damage is probably considerably better than what I had put these points on. So if I take those off, I think this is probably a much better way of spending them. And as a little tip, if you're in cover shooting people, this is basically going to be active most of the time, as well as while you're taking damage, but your suppression probably won't ever drop below green, so very much worth doing. Now that's the actual build. How to use it is another thing altogether, because, and I've never done actually any video content on how to use weapons in combat, and what I'm going to do now is just take about 20 seconds. I'm not going to run through a whole mission for you, but I'll take about 20 seconds just to run through and show you how to actually use this gun, because I'll guarantee there's quite a few people that are just going in a mission and clicking 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, or spamming a bit of this, spamming a bit of that, and not really making the most of the damage. So what I think it's worth noting is the cooldown on each of your weapons, because what you'll find is I can do this and I can do this, and I can alternate them. What I'm doing is left click and 1. And that's a very nice way of basically doubling my damage. If I'd waited for that global cooldown to come through, I'd be waiting a lot longer. And I've actually got 2 weapons that are the same here. So again, what you'll see is, okay, the dot doesn't do a lot of damage. I could technically apply a dot first, then do left, right, left, right, left, right. Now, I also have the bonus of my 900 DPS Inferno Beam. Obviously that's not particularly complicated to use. It takes 1 second to ramp up. I think you see the beam change colour a little bit. There you go, it's going a sort of a pissy yellow, and that's when it's going to be doing the most damage. But for those of you that haven't realised, if you've got a short cooldown on 2 abilities, and if the weapon abilities are off of the global cooldown, in some games what you'd have to do is you'd click left, and then the global cooldown will trigger for all of the abilities. But what you can see when I click that, it doesn't trigger for the others. So I can do left, right fairly quickly. I didn't do that very well. There you go. And it basically means you can alternate and do a lot more damage than if you were just sat there spamming left click, left click, left click. That's terrible. You can significant increase. Hopefully, guys, that gives you a little bit of inspiration as to builds you might be able to try for yourself. It's just to throw something a little bit different at you today. Again, apologies for the slow stream of content at the moment, but hey, there's not too much to talk about, and I really want to get stuck into the new patch when it's out. We will get the preview on Thursday. If you didn't listen or don't remember from the beginning of the video, we will get the preview of the new patch on Thursday within the developer stream, which will be 6 PM CEST. I think you might want to double check, it might be 7 PM CEST, and can't wait to see that. They're going to be the first tiered content, so we're going to see the end game stuff for the first tier, which is exciting to see. Also some GUI overhauls, some balance changes to some of the missions. Some of the missions are getting new random events added to them, and a graphic pipeline update, which basically means, excuse me, basically means everything's going to look a lot better, hopefully, and hoping as well that this level will get the lighting update, because it looks a lot worse than the others. Guys, have a great weekend. I'll be in touch in the week after the developer stream, so take care of yourself, and I'll see you then. Take care, all the best.